I've got two comments. One from the Blog Talk Radio chat room from Germany. I wanted to buy some gold in Frankfurt. There's a 3-hour waiting list in front of the store, and they sold out. From a Marine in Munich, gold sellers have lines out the door till closing. Some dealers have guards on their doors. Most every dealer here in Munich selling out of gold and silver, and they're charging 10% above market, which is the law for Bavaria. He goes on and says in another chat that here in Bavaria, even the small towns outside of Munich, 20 and 30 miles, there's a gold dealer, and they're out of gold before you can drive over there, unless you drive over there and you stand in line before the store opens. There's a problem here in Europe. It seems like the common man knows what the truth is, and the government are lying to everyone.
Well, that's not unusual. It's unfortunate. That's why we've been telling you for 5 years, and actually my long-term listeners and subscribers, this goes back 11 years. Agnico Eagle closed at $65 today. We recommended it at $4. Silver Standard closed at something on the order of, let me see here. It closed today at we'll say $20. We bought it starting at 85 cents. And so this has been going on for a long time. I rather miss Germany. I spent about 5 years there, and I was with Army Counterintelligence in Frankfurt. And for you guys and gals who are in Frankfurt, I was at a place called the Gutleut Kaserne, which was behind the Hauptbahnhof on Kaiserstrasse. And I've been back there many times since. And the Kaserne, which is the base, so to speak, is gone now. And there's great big buildings with condos in them. But everything changes. But I really enjoyed my time in Frankfurt. And I also lived in Würzburg, and I spent a couple of years in Kassel. And I've been all over Germany. I probably know Germany better than I know the United States. But anyway, I just thought I'd mention that. And it's what got me started in my thinking process during the middle 1950s, that got me into this outside-the-box mentality that made me look into things in a different way than most people do. And I was very fortunate, very, very fortunate, to have been in the Army Security Agency, which no longer exists. We used to spy on the Russians and the East Germans and everybody else.
Excuse me, just a second. I just came in and it's really funny. I got to tell you about it. I didn't mean to interrupt you, and it's not has anything to do with the show. Tell Mr. Chapman that Kaiserstrasse now is a major prostitution street.
Well, I don't doubt that, and I know of some of the places that you speak. Of course, I never frequent them. When I get bored, I would walk up from the Hauptbahnhof, and I'd stop on the left and have a Brötchen and a Bratwurst and a beer, and then I'd walk up to the park and walk around. And, there would be all these older people walking around in the park, and there's me in my uniform. And the older woman would look at you and say, "Nabend," and that was a short contraction for Guten Abend. And I thought they were calling me Norbert. And finally I figured it out, It's just like many of the other words in all languages, they contract everything. And you get especially in Schwabish and Bayerisch, which I can't speak, and I lived in Switzerland for a long time, and so they have Zuri Deutsch there, which is even worse than the other two dialects. And it was funny, I played golf in a tournament recently, and I was speaking to the people in Spanish. And so one of them says to me in English, you're an American? And I said, yeah. And he spoke to me in English, and I said, you originally came from Stuttgart because you have a Schwabish accent. I thought he was going to fall out of his pants. He says, that's incredible. And I said, well, I haven't been there for a long time, but, when you live in a place a long time and you're young, you retain all those things that you remember about, what you've learned. And so, being in the military and being throughout the world, I don't have to tell you, it's quite an experience.
No idea. I bet it was. I was stationed in Munich, Mr. Chapman, and I know about the blue houses. And I used to go down there to shoot pictures, and I would stand off because I was a professional photographer, combat photographer, and aerial photographer for the Corps. I had purchased some high-dollar cameras while I was in Vietnam, and I shot pictures without flash bulbs and everything else, and the girls that were in the windows that were sitting there, they just thought it was a kick because they didn't think that the pictures that I was shooting were going to be to come out as good as they did. And after about my third trip down there, and then after the development of those pictures and giving them, and then making copies and giving them back to the girls, when I would come up and they'd see me coming with the camera, they'd get out of the window. They didn't want pictures taken.
They make some of the best beer in the world there, that's for sure. In fact, throughout the world, they export. And one of the beers from there is Shrewsbury, and the other from Bad Aibling is Scheidengold, which is Chiron's next door, close to Bad Aibling. I did spend some time down there, and I've been, of course, several times to the Oktoberfest and the Hofbrauhaus and all of that, which most people visit at least once.
Okay, I have a question here. Ask Mr. Chapman if he'd be so kind to tell us what his IQ is.
180.
Okay, that's exactly what this man says. I didn't want to tell you, but probably an IQ over 180.
Well, I was one of the lucky people, and I can thank God for that. It had nothing to do with me. There's some people are born with that, and they're very fortunate. It's one of the reasons I do what I do. It's part of my giving back because I've had opportunities that other people haven't had, even though I had to work very hard for everything, and I was very poor when I was a child. And that's why I keep on doing what I'm doing. And I've been very helpful to people, and that gives me great satisfaction.
And that's why, ladies and gentlemen, I've been proud to have been able to pick up the phone and call him just about 5.5 years ago and ask him to come on a show on American Voice Radio Network as my guest every Friday. And he still does so with somebody that took over that time slot. And I want to let you know that Mr. Chapman is exactly the man he says he is. The question from the Marine Corps chat room. Ask Mr. Chapman what he thinks about the prosecutors who feel that the banks that have been foreclosed on this year, of which is already up over 35, if they have been duped and by rating agencies, and what he feels can be done, what he feels can be done about this, and that happens to be from the Marine Corps chat room.
Well, first of all, the Federal Reserve, which is a private corporation, lowered interest rates down to about 1%. And they told the 12 banks which own the Federal Reserve, their shareholders do, that they should tell all the other banks that they should make lots of loans so people can own homes. And as you all know, that made home prices go up. And in that process, people were getting mortgages. About 45 to 48% of people who own homes own them with banks. or lenders of some kind. And so they would take these mortgages and package them into bonds, and they would sell them. And they were rated by the rating agencies, Standard & Poor's, Moody's, and Fitch. And they were given AAA ratings for the most part, when in fact they weren't AAA. The difference between AAA and BBB, which they really were, is a difference between 10 and 3 or 4. And so these bonds were sold through the world,